everyone. Welcome back to Practically Green podcast, where we talk all about how to incorporate sustainability, um, beauty, fragrance, and eco into your life.
And
I
tastiness. Don't forget
am.
tastiness.
Oh, tastiness, most important actually. My favorite one of all of those. My name's Evelyn Fitzpatrick, and I'm joined by my wonderful co-host.
Anna Brown. I'm delighted to be here. Just to say who I am, I haven't said that before. I'm a flower farmer and a sustainable educator working here in Mullingar, and delighted to be here once again with Evelyn to talk about all things sustainable. So,
Delighted to have it. I noticed, Anna, actually, I think I need to say your name in the introduction because it keeps sounding like I forget your name. So I just want our listeners to know I definitely know your name.
yes, I am Anna Brown and you're Evelyn Fitzpatrick, and we know
Yeah.
each other's names very well.
So Anna, what are we talking about this week?
Well, I mean, how have we been getting on in the week since we've what's I know the weather's been really horrible here, and for me as a farmer, a flower farmer, I'm a bit distraught because once again the garden is underwater. We had
Yeah.
that kind of brief period of dryness and everything dried up and it was lovely, and I got out there, did a bit of weeding, and then I fell over and I decided that was the universe telling me not to do any more weeding and I should come
Oh,
in.
Anna, you
So
serious? Did you hurt yourself?
a little. I was doing this thing where I was thinking about the next thing rather than thinking
Mm-hmm.
about what I was doing. And when
Yeah.
that happens quite often, I'm inclined to fall. So I actually did a whole total like face plant
Oh,
in the
stop.
ground. I fell over one of the chicken tractors. I must not lift my feet up high enough. That's all I can think about. But anyhow,
You're in your own world when you're in your garden, I
at
suppose.
that point, I thought, okay, this is probably not a good reason to keep on. If I'm going to be falling over, I probably shouldn't. I should get
Yeah.
out of the garden and go lie down for a while. So I
Yeah.
did.
I was gonna say have a rest, but having a rest isn't your strong point. Sure, it's
No,
not.
but I did have a rest, but it did not sit well with me.
Oh yeah. Oh well, I hope you're feeling all right now.
I'm grand. I'm perfect. I mean, I think when I was younger, we had a donkey that I used to ride, and she threw me a lot. And I think I learned to fall really well from that. I think when I find myself in the air, I just kind of relax and hit the ground in a very relaxed state, and that's usually the best way to fall. So
Oh, that's so funny, Anna. So that donkey taught you a really good life lesson.
really good life lesson, yes, how to fall. So
Oh, fair play. Yeah, so the weather it's been a bummer with it, hasn't it? But
well,
I
I'm
totally
concerned
enjoyed
about,
that.
farmers and stuff, because whatever about me and my flowers, they're a luxury, not a necessity, but the spuds are not in the fields yet.
Yeah.
The first early secondaries would have normally gone in around Paddy's Day or so, and they haven't got in because the fields have been too wet. And if they have gone in, they've rotted in the fields. So we're going to have potentially a potato shortage this year. Prices are going to go up. And I
Mm-hmm.
suppose, if prices of food go up, we have to think about our buying habits, which leads us very nicely into our food waste section.
Oh yeah, excellent. Yeah.
Yeah, good
Yeah.
segue.
Excellent segue. Nicely done, Anna. I'm very impressed. Yeah, this week we really wanted to get into the topic of food waste because it is a major climate issue. So there's huge emissions from food waste, and God, I did know the stats, and now that I'm trying to say them, it's gone out of my head completely. But
So basically, if we, according to Project Drawdown, electric cars will sequester only 7.66 gigatons of carbon dioxide emissions, but preventing food waste will sequester 88.5. So that's like 7.6 versus 88.5. So like orders of magnitude different.
yeah,
So not get the electric car, just don't be buying the food you don't need.
yeah, it's huge. It's
Huge.
massive. From an environmental point of view, but also from like an economic point of view. Um, I used to run a food waste workshop when I had the shop, and when I was researching for it, it said that on average, every Irish household wastes about €700 worth of food every year. Um, which, especially in a cost of living crisis, that ain't good. So, um, it's better for our pockets if we just start, shopping
Better for
properly.
everyone, the pockets and the environment and everyone, if we can, yeah,
Yeah.
reduce food waste. So first place, I suppose, is, planning, meal planning
Hmm.
and making a list. That sounds really boring, but it
Hmm.
actually makes your life a lot easier having a list. And for me, um, I only ever, well, I go to the supermarket occasionally, but I mostly shop online. I mostly shop with one shop. And because I've bought from them before, I don't actually have to make a list because it's there in what I bought last week. Just say, yes, yes, yes. No, I got enough of that.
Yeah.
So there's no impulse buys happening there. Um, I'm buying what I need. I don't necessarily make a meal plan. We kind of have things that we can use for different meals. And, I'll always have some carrots and some onions in the fridge. Well, the onions won't be the fridge, the carrots will be.
Yeah.
And, I'll have basic things, some tins of tomatoes and, pasta and potatoes. But doing that means that I don't impulse buy, and I make my life very easy as well, because from a time point of view, to go to the grocery store, to walk around the aisles, to put the stuff into your trolley, to put it into put it up, get it checked out, put it into your
Yeah.
car, drive it home, bring it out of your car. When I go click and collect, they, basically comes to the back of my car, I put it in, I come home. So, um,
So
yeah. And I mean, there was a time when I got deliveries done when the kids were younger and I was planning more in advance. And that's even better because there's one guy driving around rather than lots of people driving to the shop. So lots of kind of carbon savings there. But let's talk about, if you do go to the supermarket, what kind of things you
mm,
can do there to reduce food
yeah.
waste.
Well, I am the opposite of you in a way, Anna. I'm one of those weirdos that genuinely enjoys food shopping. So I do enjoy it when I get to do it. But generally before I go, I do like basically a stock take of what's at home. I figure out, like, we cook a lot of the same meals, so I know, like, the way you have your list is kind of already done for you. I have a fair idea of what I need in my head, of regular meals that I make, but I like to take a photo of the fridge, so I know what's in there. Especially if I'm like planning on going to shop after work. I can take a photo in the morning and I know what's there then, so I kind of have an idea of what I
And
need.
even if you hadn't done that thinking ahead, somebody at home could send you that photograph.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I just hate buying, like, I hate, if I want something like coleslaw or whatever, like having a second one, you know well that that's going to go off. So, um, but yeah, when I get into the food, when I go into the shops, most people kind of start with a fruit and veg. I don't. I go directly to the reduced food section, and I work my way back from there. Um, and I love the reduced food section. It's like, I don't know, I feel good about. I know what's going to happen to that food. I've worked in retail quite a lot over the years, so generally, if food goes into the reduced food section and isn't sold, that ends up in a bin. So, that's generally a black bin. So heading for landfill, which is atrocious. So,
It's basically food covered in plastic going into landfill.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And food in landfill creates methane gases. So it's really, really horrible for the environment. So trying to avoid that at all costs. But also when you get there, there is some gems. Like, I have, like, regularly would get veg from there that's perfectly good. Um, and a lot of the time bread. If you eat meat, there's always meat in the reduced food section that's still in date. It's still good to go. So yeah, so it's a good place for me to start. Things like yogurts and that kind of stuff. If I was going to pop in for like get something for a snack for a day, I'd go for the reduced food section and find like my yogurt and stuff there. But yeah, there's loads of gyms, and I work my way back
And
from
do
there.
all
So that's,
shops have a reduced food section, Evelyn?
yeah, pretty much. Pretty much any of the big supermarkets. Tesco's done Super Value. Super Value generally has a very good reduced food section, and
And
Tesco's,
I've never been to the one in Super Value. I've been to the one in Don's. I know where the one in Tesco is.
yeah.
Aldi and Lidl are not so big, but they have them kind of near the back. But where is the one in Super Value? Where would I find the reduced food section
It's
in Mullingar Super
generally,
Value?
well, the Mullingar one, it's down the back where the fridges are. So they usually have a fridge with a table beside it. So generally, Super Values in general will have it over by the fridges. Tesco also has it in the fridges, and then Dunn's generally will have it um in the fruit and veg section. That's where they keep theirs most
All
of the
right.
time. Yeah, yeah. So it's like they all have kind of their systems for it. But yeah,
I think
so
Dunn's
there's
might have
usually,
two then because they have a meaty section in the meat section and probably something else in the fruit and veg section.
oh yeah, so
You're
you're
probably
very
not
into
wandering
the,
into the meat section to find that.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, so that's like one way to kind of already from the start of your shopping that you're reducing food waste by what you're buying.
So you're
Um,
basically saving money and you're feeling really good about yourself. And you're also testing your creativity a little bit because you're looking at things maybe you wouldn't normally buy and thinking, could I use this? Could I make something with this?
Yeah, yeah. Like so much of it is just being a little bit more creative. Like you might need to use a different type of cheese than you normally would. Like it's very, or like the meat for your sandwiches that might be different. I don't know. Like it's really, really small things, but just being a bit more open to rather than this is exactly what I buy from this brand every week. It's just mixing it up a little bit. But you can save a fortune from the reduced section.
And I suppose with things like vegetables, I mean, they would have quite often, and we just maybe talk about the use by and best before. So best before is kind of a suggestion, and the
Hmm.
use by is a bit more serious, like you don't want to be eating things that are past the use by date.
Yeah.
But sometimes they have the use by on veg, and veg doesn't suddenly turn like an onion doesn't suddenly become poisonous on a certain, like it doesn't know what its use by date is. So
Yeah.
you can kind of use common sense with, vegetables that grow on the ground or vegetables that, apples that are on trees.
Yeah.
They don't suddenly change from being
Mm.
perfectly delicious to being, very bad for you
Yeah. I mean, if
because
it's
some
meat or dairy, I go by the use by date.
absolutely same
But
here. Yeah.
everything else, for me, is common sense. And the best before dates, I mean, Jesus, I was reared over a shop. Like my parents had a shop when we were kids, and anything that would best before, like that was ours. We got that. So, like the best before chocolate, all the crisps, all that crack, that was ours.
Right.
I used to
And I
love it.
suppose, if you see that there's meat that's, it's used by today, you bring it home, put it in the freezer, it's fine.
Oh yeah, I think a lot of people think on the day, then it's gone. It's not. You can cook it or freeze it up until and on that day, and then
Yes.
the next day is when it's gone. Yeah,
Yeah. So if you saw like a lovely chicken, but you didn't want to cook chicken today, well, you wouldn't cook chicken any day, but I would cook chicken today. You can cook it today and freeze it, or put it in the freezer and cook it when it comes out, and it's
yeah,
perfectly fine.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So that's a good one to know.
Yeah. So then I suppose, do you want to talk about more about, you're saying that you kind of go there first and you go to other parts of the shop. Are there things that are worth sharing from a food waste point of view there?
Yeah, I suppose it's kind of buying, like avoiding things like multi-packs. I try and do those, and watching out. It's the basic things of like watching out for the special offers and impulse buying in that way. So I stopped doing a lot of those things based on I was trying to reduce my plastic waste. And that automatically meant that I wasn't buying multi-packs of things. Um, so yeah, it's kind of knowing what you do need. And I suppose one thing as well is having a fair idea of what you throw out on a regular basis and stop buying that is another thing. I suppose that's probably pre going to the shop. But if you find, I don't know, sometimes we go through phases of like, you know some people get obsessed about a certain meal or whatever, and then all of a sudden you don't want it anymore, but you're still buying the ingredients for it just in case. Those
Yeah.
kind of basic things.
And
Yeah.
I suppose there's, yeah, what I was going to say there now. Something came to me and it went away.
And it went as quick as it came. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
then
so
I
it's
suppose moving
really
on
being
to
conscious
other
there.
ways to reduce food waste.
Well,
There,
you're classed as a food waste hero, aren't you, Anna?
I am a food waste hero, yes. So there's an organization or an app or a company called Olio, and they do something where they work with shops, and the one they work with mostly in Ireland is Tesco. And, so they basically, Tesco tells Ollie, oh, we have something for you. And somebody in the shop goes around and figures out what's going out of date, what's going to be, has a used by or best before on that date, and puts it into crates and assembles it. For me, I'm a Saturday night. So on Saturday afternoon, I get a text to say, am I ready? And I say, I am. And then about 7 o'clock, there's a message that comes that says, Tesco has food for you. And I head down to Tesco at 8 o'clock, and they have crates of food for me. And in many cases, 8 crates or 9 crates of food has to fit into my car. I go there, I say I'm part of the
Huge
Olio,
amount.
and they know who I am, and we wheel out these crates to the car and I load them up. And then my job is to offer them on the app. So I go through them, I photograph them, and I need to do it quickly because a lot of them have to be, well, the breads and stuff, that's a use by. So that's, no, that's the best before. So it's fine the next day, but
Hmm.
nicer if you get it that night. Um, the stuff that is used by has to go and be given to somebody that night, or else it has to, well, generally in my case, the hens or the worms will eat it at that point, or it'll go in the
Mhm.
freezer. So I take photographs, I put them on, and then people message me to say, so you've been a recipient of this kind of thing, Evelyn. So you'll get a text saying there's listings added nearby. You'll go and you
Mhm.
look, you'll see the photographs I've added, and you'll say, can I please have some of those?
Yeah.
You want to talk through how when you went looking and what happened?
Yeah, exactly. So I'll actually go, I've got a notification that Olio has sent me for food waste today, actually, now that we're saying it. It couldn't be any easier. You get a notification that there's food on offer. It tells you how close by that person is in kilometers. They don't give out addresses until you've sorted that out. But here's like cheesy pastries, and it's in Kinnegad, so not far from me. It tells me what their use by date is, and when I can pick it up, and then you just press a button that says request this, and then that you get that notification, and I assume you just
And
say,
it's well, it's the messages. You say I tell you where I live, and you say you're going to collect it at 10 o'clock tonight, and I say
yeah,
great. And maybe I'll put it in a bag outside the house and put your name on it. That's happened.
mm,
I've collected stuff, and you don't actually have to even see the person. You can do something like that. And to be honest, there's so much bread comes. It's just ridiculous how much bread. There's crates and crates and crates of bread, so that nobody should ever have to buy bread again if they get on Olio because, and it's all the really nice, the sourdoughs. I mean, there's lots of baguettes as well, but
mm.
really lovely sourdoughs, the olive ones and the sun-dried tomato ones and the caramelized onion ones, and they're just really
Yeah,
very
the
nice food.
expensive ones, like the expensive bread, is usually
Exactly.
what ends
Yeah.
up on the
Yeah.
Olio app.
So a lot of
Yeah.
that goes into my freezer. Worst case, the hens get to eat it.
Mhm.
But they're doing all right. They give us eggs in return, so that's fine.
Yeah.
And there's some things that sometimes you get herbs that are completely horrible and mushy, and they go into the compost bin, and that's fine. But they don't go into the compost bin, the plastic. They go in, I take the plastic off and that goes into the bin, and
Yeah.
the herbs go into the compost bin. So, and I suppose for me, I mean, I'm really, really into composting. And it's probably ridiculous how much how much I love composting, but I
Yeah.
do. And it's a way to feed your soil. So, we talked a bit before about, we didn't talk, but we've talked among ourselves about bendy carrots. So, um, you might get to the point where you've forgotten to use your carrots and they've started to get a bit bendy in the fridge. And Evan, you've got a tip for the bendy carrots
Mhm.
to kind of bring them back to life.
Yeah, yeah. So that would be, it's so simple. It's if your carrots are like bendy and they're kind of on the edge of like, I don't know whether I should use these or not, put them into a glass or a jar or a lunchbox or something of water and just leave them for a few hours. And within a few hours, you've got like perfectly fresh, crisp carrots to use again. And it works for things like parsnips and stuff as well.
All the
Um,
root veg probably it works for.
Yeah, yeah, it's really, really, it's such a handy one. And like, if you really like, I've had carrots that I've thought, right, these are gone past the point of no return, and generally I'll peel those and put them in to the water, and they're perfect, absolutely perfect. So,
So for me, the ones that are bendy, they actually has concentrated the flavors. They actually, if you're cooking them, they taste better than they would if they were all zingy and
yeah,
crisp. If you were going to eat them raw, definitely the water tip would work. But for me, the bendy ones, I just peel them and put them into the stew as they are, or the soup, and you actually get a better flavor because some of the water's gone out of them, so they're actually more of a concentrated carrot flavor. But
mm,
sometimes the carrots turn black in the fridge, and you can't bring them back
yeah,
um, from the death. So they're the ones that end up in the compost bin,
mm,
and that's perfectly fine. That feeds the worms. It feeds nutrients in the soil. Like, I mean, certainly where I live, we have the brown bins that you can kind of give the county council your brown waste, and then they can sell it to somebody who'll then, or somebody can buy it from them or whatever. Somebody takes it away from them and turns into beautiful compost that you can then buy for your farm, but
yeah,
or your garden. But I like to keep that for myself because I want to I don't have to go through a middleman to make it.
absolutely.
So yeah, I think I've got about 10 or 12 compost bins in my garden
Do
using
you
up
actually,
all
Anna?
that.
Jesus, that's
I know, and
that's
it's just a
cool.
small suburban garden, but they're kind of hidden away in different places, and there's like compost piles as well. So, but I always want to have one that's kind of coming to an end of, and
Mm,
nearly ready, because I always have use for that compost for
yeah,
potting up plants, or right now where I'm weeding, because everything is so wet, a huge amount of soil is coming out with the roots, and that's
mhm,
fine. But there's like big holes in the garden. So I'm backfilling those holes with compost. And then, the weed with soil attached will go into a different compost bin. And eventually the weed will be dead and the soil is there for the use later on. So, I wouldn't be throwing out any of that stuff. That's all way too good to be got rid of. But it is something like right now I need lots of mulch for my soil because that'll also help it drain better. It'll help feed the worms. And the worms have had a hard time with all this rain. They've had to like, be living practically sub-aqua worms. So bit of compost to feed them is a good thing.
So we'll be thanking you.
Yes. So I mean, then that's one of the ways that we can definitely address food waste by putting your organic waste into the brown bin or composting it yourself or feeding worms or whatever. Those are great ways to reduce the carbon emissions.
Yeah.
And we were talking about when the supermarket throws it out and it's in plastic, it goes in and produces methane. That's not going to happen if you compost it yourself or it goes
Yeah.
into the town composting into the compost bins that the town and city provides for you.
So never
Um,
the black bin.
never the black bin. No.
Underline, underline. Yeah.
Yes. So
Um.
there's another app called Too Good to Go.
Mm,
And you used
yeah,
that when you were in the refill mill. You were on the retailer side of that. So how did
I
that work?
was. Yeah. So it's a really handy one. That's for like food that hasn't reached its best before yet, or actually I think you can put stuff that is on the best before. But anyways, it's food that's perfectly good to eat, but that can't be sold or won't be sold. Um, and you can put it up for a smaller amount. So generally you would put a 12 euros worth of food on it for and sell it for €4. That's generally how it goes, and it's usually as a like a lucky bag or a surprise bag or whatever. But other places so I did it with the refill mill. I did it when something was going to go out of date, or if I had too much of one item, I could put it up. And that was one way for me to still get some sort of money for it to pay the costs of them, but also without producing food waste. But there's other places that do it, like some cafes will do it if they've got sandwiches and things left towards the end of the day. They know they've made too many. Bakeries can do it as well. If they just know, geez, we haven't sold nearly enough of these today, by 5 o'clock this evening, we're going to have loads left. They can put it up and people can come from 4 o'clock onwards and we'll have paid the €4 and we'll get the surprise bag of whatever mix is left.
So I could pay €4 to the bakery, the one of the bakery that's in the Duns shopping centre.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I
Here's
show up
different.
there at 4 o'clock or half 4 and they'll give
Mm-hmm.
me €12 worth of goodies. I won't know what they are,
Yeah,
but it'll be baked goods that they haven't been able to sell. And I'll go home with very good value.
yeah, exactly. You get loads. You'll get loads, and usually, like it's much more than €12 because no business wants to be left with all of that stuff anyway. And I think that little and Aldi do it as well. Um,
Yeah, I
definitely.
think you're right. And I think their stuff disappears very quickly. I think people are, jump on that. That's mostly
Yeah,
veg, I think, and things like that.
yeah,
But I have seen, I've never seen one where whenever I looked at it, there was something available. Like in the Olio,
yeah. You
there's
have to get
always
up early
somebody
in the
giving
morning to get those ones, Anna.
you do.
Yeah, but
But
that's
and
another
that's a
one.
good
So
thing.
people
Then
that have food businesses can use that as a way of reducing their food waste. It's a really handy one, and you're making some income off of it as well. So it's win-win.
but as consumers, we have to be also participating in that. And I've met some people who didn't know about Olio or Too Good to Go. So it's good that we're letting people know. So and we put that in the show notes for sure.
Yeah,
But yeah, you just need to install the Olio or the Too Good to Go app on your phone. It kind of figures out where you are and it'll tell you what you need to know then from there on. And with the Olio, there's no charge. Everything is free.
yeah,
You can also give stuff away on Olio if you have like, clothes or extra food yourself, or you've made too much soup or something, you can give that away. Um, for the Food Waste Hero, for the job that I do, I had to do some training. I had to be registered with the HSE, but it wasn't anything that was particularly difficult. And certainly it was a very simple process to go through. And,
mm,
I mean, because I'm so passionate about waste and I'm happy to spend some time on a Saturday evening. I don't have a social life either. Happy to go down to Tesco on Saturday evening, pick up the stuff and then distribute it to people that come to my house then for basically I kind of let them Saturday evening till about 11, then Sunday morning for an hour or so. And that's it. Then I'm done. I don't want to be doing it for the rest of the week. And you couldn't
oh yeah,
really
of
because,
course.
but there's people, except for Friday, there's somebody collecting from Alio and Tesco. And I pretty much think that they all get like 6 to 8 crates of food
Every day.
every day.
Yeah, it's mad.
So, yeah.
So, and that's yeah. So I suppose that's one good thing to say. You did it on a Saturday night, but you can get it any day of the week. And we mentioned that it's bread, a lot of bread, but there's also like I've gotten loads of veg from it. I've gotten cheese, sausages, falafels, sandwiches. There's loads. So it's, yeah, you can make a nice meal out of what you get from
I
Olio.
mean, we've
Um,
sat down on numerous occasions, and with some donations from one of our neighbors who's got some veg growing at the moment, we've had a completely free dinner. Between the Olio food and the neighbors giving us some veg, we didn't buy anything.
Brilliant.
So how bad is that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So good, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, it is. So we move on to our activities, you know.
Yes.
I mean, we could talk about being creative with meal planning, but I think we get outside. We should do a little bit of
Honestly, and I
outside
think
stuff
we could
because
go, yeah, I think we could go for half the evening talking about food waste between you and I. But no, we'll move on. We won't bore the listeners.
so we
Uh,
want to
yeah.
recommend today is taking a walk on the greenways of the canals.
Hmm.
This point in time, there's so much to see. There's an app called Merlin where you can listen to, you can basically, it'll tell you what birds are singing. And it's really great because
Ah,
I don't love birds, but I like their existence. I like them to be existing. And I like to know what they are. So if you just put the Merlin app, you can hear all this bird song. It'll tell you that there's thrushes and there's wrens and there's robins and different
oh,
things singing. So it's really nice to know what you can't necessarily see them, but you can. And actually, on the Greenway last week, we saw a fox. Um,
gorgeous, Anna.
Beautiful, very healthy looking fox. It wasn't even running away that fast. We had dogs out with us, but it was just like casually, hanging out in the field next to the greenway. So there's lots of wildlife, and I think the council has done a great job of keeping the biodiversity on the greenway.
Mm.
There's lots of wild hedges either side of it. They mow so that there's not brambles coming across the path, but there is a certain wildness there, and those are good corridors for the creatures to move around. And I've seen unusual butterflies there. The wildflowers change every week.
Yeah,
They're not spraying or anything, so there's lots of very interesting wildflowers growing there. So
it's
that'd be my
gorgeous.
recommendation is to get out. And the canal is equally good. So either of
Yeah.
those, the Greenway, the canal, there's such a lovely free resource. People come on holidays and think it's a great thing, and we have it so close to us. I don't know, is the canal close to you, Evelyn? Do you have nice walks near you?
Yeah, well, from where I am, everything is 15 minutes on it. So yeah, I can get on the canal few different spots from where I
But you
am.
you have there's a Turles Pass walk. There's that what's the name? Ethos is the group in Turles
Yeah,
Pass.
everything Charles Pass has on show.
Yeah,
It's a bog walk. It's beautiful.
that's
Beautiful.
fabulous.
It really is so beautiful. And yeah, I love getting out for a walk, and I'm actually going to go for a walk after this, especially this time of year because you were saying you don't like birds. I love birds, so nothing makes me happier than going for a walk and listening to the birds. So I'm definitely going to download that app because I'm not great for identifying what is what. Now sometimes I say it with confidence when there's somebody around, but I'm not so sure. So it'd be good to have the apps. But I think that it's really lovely to take slow walks on days like this when there's so much life around you. And I'll be really conscious of the hedges as well, of seeing how many like flying insects and things are going in and out of the hedges. I don't know, I suppose I'm so aware of the climate crisis that I can really appreciate when I see that kind of life around us. That brings me a lot of joy, and I feel like really protective over it as well. But yeah, that's a lovely thing to do. And I think actually, well, I'm part of the Mullingar Climate Action Network, and we meet up on a semi-regular basis and do cleanups. Like we'll just go for a walk on a Sunday morning and clean up along the canal. But I think there's an initiative. I think it's a Tidy Towns thing, Anna, where they're encouraging you to create a green mile. And we picked the canal for that. So it's just that's kind of our mile. We'll look after it and pick up litter and encourage biodiversity and things like that on it. But that's a nice thing for people to do if they like getting out. Um, you might feel protective over a space.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you do that, if you're canoeing in it or if you're using a space and enjoying it, you would be upset if somebody, damages it. So you have taken a bit of ownership in that sense of
Yeah.
the space. Yeah.
And also same with walking, but renting a bike if you don't have a bike.
Yeah.
You have your own bike, bring it, and if you don't, cycle in the greenway is brilliant. It's a lovely way to spend the afternoon. So
Yeah. You can see a bit more with the bike. You can get a bit
yeah,
further.
get out there and on your bikes.
Indeed. Indeed. Right. Very
Yeah,
good.
so that's a nice recommendation for this week.
So then we were going to talk about a bit about seasonal foods.
Hmm.
And it hasn't changed a lot since the last time, but I wanted to mention somebody locally who's, if you want to see seasonal food, if you just look at her Instagram. So Shannon is her name. She's a horticulturalist. She's growing veg and she supplies those veg to at both the refill mill and nuts and grains. And she'll also, I think she does a delivery scheme. I'm not sure about that, but she certainly, if you want to get one of her boxes, you just have to put an order to her and you say you'll collect it in the refill mill and she'll have them delivered for Tuesday. And look at what she had this week. She had little tiny white turnips. There's lots of greens at the moment. That's kind of what there is. But she had salad bags. She had kale. She had purple sprouting broccoli. Can't remember what else now. There maybe was some chard in there. But it was all very, very healthy looking, very, very tasty. You know, if you want to eat seasonally, to find a farmer who's near you and buy from them is the best way to do it because that's all they have is the seasonal veg. And
Yeah,
we're lucky to have somebody in Mullingar who's actually supplying veg because it's a very hard life to choose to grow veg.
for
And
sure.
people will go and say, "Oh, I can get that." They'll get their peppers for 49 cents and one of the big whatever. And that's not seasonal, not sustainable. But to support somebody who's locally who's growing, is a fabulous thing to do environmentally, but also just for the just for the economy locally as well. So
Yeah, it's ticking the boxes in so many on so many things if you're supporting a small local farmer because um as a small country, I mean, we've a huge farming industry, but we do not have a massive um, veg farming industry. Sure, we don't.
no,
Like, it's
no, we
really,
import an
really,
awful lot of veg.
it's crazy for when it grows so well here. Like, it's crazy how much that we do import.
Well,
Uh,
there was I had an interesting statistic. So this is more the UK than Ireland, but I'm sure it's applicable. So at the start of World War II, the UK was importing like 90% of their food. And they recognized that the war was going to continue. They weren't going to be able to do that. So they had the big Dig for Victory campaign where people were growing vegetables in their back garden. And they basically got to the point where they were only importing like 5 or 10% by the end of that very quickly. And at the end of the war, even though there was like a lot of privation and whatever, there was things were rationed, people were the healthiest they'd ever been. The ones that didn't get killed in the war, I suppose, or damaged, the ones that actually were, you
yeah,
know, from eating all that veg and growing the veg, people were really healthy. And if they can do that in the UK with that big population, we could certainly do that. Now, I don't want there to be a war that makes us do it.
no,
That's absolutely not the reason. But I think if they can do it with their climate, ours isn't so different. We could
exactly.
certainly do a lot more. We could certainly grow a lot more veg here. And I'm not suggesting that everybody has to do it in their own back garden, although that would be great if they did. But certainly by supporting local farmers, we can actually improve our health and do a lot for the environment as well. Because most people that are farming today that aren't farming at a large scale are they're growing regeneratively. They're not damaging the soil, they're not damaging the land, not damaging the creatures. They're living in harmony with nature. So definitely worth supporting your local. So I know people listen to this all over the world. So if you can find somebody locally who's growing veg in your area, please try and support them. But
Yeah,
if you're in Mullingar, which a lot of our listeners are, then Shannon's Eco Farm is the woman for you.
excellent. Yeah, definitely, definitely. And there's nothing like the freshly grown um veg that hasn't been sprayed with pesticides and whatnot. Like there's nothing. The taste is there's no comparison. So, um, yeah, get on to it, guys.
Yeah. So that's it for us for this week.
Yeah, I think we've enough said now, haven't we?
I think we have.
Good stuff. Yeah, so guys, please do follow us on social media and I think you rate and review or whatever our
Yeah,
podcast
we'd,
would be
we'd
really,
be
really
delighted
nice.
if you would, yeah, give us a like
Share.
or whatever involved. I suppose follow the Instagram account, the Practically Green podcast.
Yeah,
There's very many followers there yet, so hopefully that'll change. But also, when you download it, give us a review, tell us, and it's amazing how those will actually make us feel good about ourselves. So
oh, it's so lovely. It's so lovely. I miss the community of the shop, so it's really nice to build a community around the podcast. I'd really, really love that. So, um, but yeah, thanks so much, guys, for listening. Any suggestions, send them our way. And thanks a million for all the feedback. And That's nice feel anyway, Anna.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Goodbye for
talk to
now.
you soon. Bye.